am Ngare Kariuki. Currently, I work as a communication expert in a PR organization here in Nairobi. But I'm actually a civil engineer by training, and I've also worked as a journalist, a print journalist before I joined PR. I've lived with depression for more than 15 years, so it's something that I learned in hindsight, that I was dealing with depression for most of my later teens and early adulthood, but it's only in the last 3 years that I got an official diagnosis for the disease. So I first became concerned about what was happening to me about 3 years ago when I was working as a journalist. I remember on this one particular episode I'd gone to cover a story out of Nairobi. It was a conflict among the Pokot people in Baringo, and I spent like a week there just interviewing people, taking down notes. But when I came back to Nairobi, I realized I couldn't remember most of what had happened. I was looking at my notes and most of it didn't make sense. So I started getting worried why I was getting very recurrent memory losses. And over time, there were other symptoms that at that time didn't make sense. I couldn't correlate with any, I can say, mental illness. Like I would feel a lot of fogginess in my brain. Later on, I would start just feeling lethargic. I don't want to wake up or go to work. And this was a kind of a different kind of lethargy, because normally when you have the Monday blues, you still push yourself because the fear of going hungry is more than the fear of just not losing a job. So you push yourself. But at that time, I got to a point where I could not push myself. I didn't care about the consequences. I would stay at home and I would not even make up excuses to my employer about why. I would just say I don't feel like going to work and I don't know why. So among the most common symptoms of depression, which also happen to be the most overlooked, include things like maybe you just sleeping all the time, but also the reverse. For some people, it's you have a like consistent and continuous insomnia where you just can't fall asleep, you're always awake. The other one was being in just a low, it's more than sadness, it's more like you suddenly just don't care about a lot in life. The things that used to interest you, the things that used to excite you no longer move you as much. You'd rather just stay at home. And especially when this is not even consistent with your personality, those are alarm bells. So when we finally officially confirmed that it was depression, for me, first of all, personally it was a relief, because it made sense of so many things. And the first thing I did, of course, was to go read up now on what depression is about. And as I was reading, everything I was reading just made sense, and made sense of my life, made sense of the struggles I had. But the response wasn't exactly the same for other people, especially friends and my family. For my mother now, it was an interesting situation, because when I now told her what was happening and I gave her something to read, the first thing that came to her mind was my dad. Because my dad had passed on when I was in high school, and apparently now my mom was learning through my own diagnosis that my dad had suffered from depression for years, but they didn't know. And the same thing had happened to my dad's dad, who had committed suicide years, I think even before I was born. But the story in the village and in our family was that the men in this family, there's just a curse that is on them that we can't explain. And sadly for my mom, she was seeing the same thing happening to me. I'm becoming like my father. I'm starting to lose interest in so many opportunities that life has given me. So there was a sense of confusion, for her confusion, disappointment that she didn't know early enough, but also relief that now she could finally make sense of so many things that didn't make sense before. As for my friends, it was a mixed bag, because the thing with this kind of condition is it affects your relationships. It makes you either antisocial, it makes you look like you don't really care much about your friends, very self-centered and self-focused, where you want people to be there for you, but when they come, you're pushing them away. It's just a very confusing place to be. And in that period, I lost many friends, but there are a few friends that hung around. And the next thing that I learned with that is that I had to teach my friends how to deal with someone like me, because for them it wasn't a priority to learn about depression. Someone like me who is living in it, I had to learn and now give them ideas, because they would want to be there for me, but they had no clue about how to go about it. So it helped to kind of be the one helping them to help me, and that's how it's been even up to today. Sometimes I feel like I have what they call bipolar, because there are days when it's just that I don't go to the extreme of aggressiveness, but there are days when I would still wake up. I've been on medication, going for therapy for at least 2 years now, and I would still wake up and I can't get out of bed. And then the next day I wake up like I'm the first person to leave the house in the morning. I go to work very early, even before the office is open, and I'm all over the place. I'm very productive. I'm catching up on what I missed on the day that I didn't feel like doing anything, only to be followed by another wave of just extreme sadness. It's also sad that mental health issues tend to be very high in areas of extreme poverty, like in the slums, the street kids who have to deal with it by sniffing glue and taking drugs. And yet these are the people who are least able to afford care for this particular type of condition. And ironically, this type of condition is also the most expensive at the moment in terms of the day-to-day care. That it's the most expensive kind of medical treatment out there. So you find that the people who, if you don't have medical cover, there's just no hope. You have to find other ways of coping, which would include things like now alcoholism and taking drugs and just becoming a bum. The debate about mental illness is interesting, because I've personally debated about it. And this is a question I actually had to ask. Being a journalist, I started interviewing my own doctor about the profession, and I've learned a lot about the different kinds of the depression and mental illness. And there are some that we found they have a genetic predisposition, that there has been research about it that shows that people from certain kinds of families that have people dealing with particular type of mental illness tend to exhibit the same, whether or not they actually explicitly knew about it. And I'm a good example of this, because my dad and his dad, they dealt with the same, and we've seen it in many of my cousins from my dad's side of family, that they're dealing with the same, and yet we've never had one person who was diagnosed with depression and then now others came and say, okay, I think I could also have depression. This came in hindsight. Like, we just knew there was something that was off with this particular line of family, and it was only with my diagnosis that it made sense. So for me, that is an anecdotal example that has been confirmed by research, that there is a genetic composition to some of these mental conditions. That scares me, because it will force me to deal with someone like me, whether I want it or I like it or not. But also, I'm grateful that I know about my condition now. I have the advantage that my parents didn't have, and I'm able to plan early. I'm able to notice and monitor my child and see how they're behaving, and just kind of anticipate what is going to happen. So I've been doing a lot in terms of reading on books about raising children who are dealing with this, basically the spectrum of mental illness. And my wife and I have been thinking about several strategies. The big one has to be, our family is going to be a family of communication and just guys talking, because I come from a family where we can't blame the others, but I blame myself. We didn't communicate a lot. There are things that were suppressed, things that were kept inside, and I know that hurts more than helps the situation. So one of the strategies would be to be a family that's really open. I will talk to my children about other people who have mental illness, and I will also introduce them to my own condition and the journey of how the marriage between me and their mother has been while dealing with this. That will help in terms of growing the sense of empathy and also preparing them for what may and hopefully may not happen. My main message to anyone who thinks they are dealing with depression, even when they're not, even if you're just having a bad day, I think this advice applies to everyone, is just talk about it, tell someone about it. It's really basic. It's basic that you should just let yourself be seen and be known. If you're having a bad day, tell someone about it. If you're sad, tell someone about it. It might turn out it's nothing, but then it might also turn out to be something. Some of the tips I would say that have been really helpful. The big one has been to always be open about what's going on, what you're feeling. Because once you're not able to express exactly what is happening to you, no matter how embarrassing it sounds, no matter how it makes you look, you will not be able to get help. The other basic ways of coping would include consistent exercise, because it helps with getting out the hormones that are needed to keep you up and active. The other is, of course, a good diet. My doctor keeps recommending something he calls the Mediterranean diet, which I've found weird, but something to do with white meat and, and that kind of meat instead of red meat.